What is going on, my friends, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be discussing one of the most recent releases of Archer commanders, none other than Shajar herself. Now, this particular commander has seen some difficulty finding her relevance in the current meta that we have right now in Rise of Kingdoms. So today, I wanted to debunk some of those myths and talk about whether or not you should be using Shajar and who exactly is going to benefit from using her in the field. So with that said, guys, let's get into the video. Now, first of all, I wanted to say there are certain players who are going to be getting a very big buff from Shajar. We have just seen the commander swap event where players did have the opportunity to max 2 commanders of their choice. Now, a lot of players have chosen the brand new King Arthur as their selection. So I have good news for you guys. If you are using King Arthur, then Shajar will be giving you an extra buff. Now, also, this is going to work the same way for infantry players who are using the smite damage synergy. So whether you are using commanders like Liuchi, William Wallace, or the brand new combo attack damage commanders from cavalry, Shajar is going to be giving you a secret buff. So with that said, guys, let's get into some of these skills so we can talk about exactly what she's going to be giving you on the field. Now, first of all, her active skill is going to be dealing up to 2,800 damage factor if she is the primary commander. Now, here's the key difference, guys. If she is serving as the secondary commander, for the next 10 seconds, whenever this commander heals a target, they will also deal 80% percentage is affected by their troops' attack of the heal strength as true damage to a target troop. This commander's troop is mighty healed for a large portion of its slightly wounded units, and the healing factor is 2,000. In either case, the target of the damage is going to lose 50% march speed for 3 seconds. So this is very important to differentiate these two meanings. We have also seen that with the combo attack damage from King Arthur, whether he is serving as the primary commander or the secondary commander, that is going to really change the effects of that skill. So moving on to the second skill, this is going to be giving Shajar a 35% health bonus with a 20% march speed. So both of these stats here are very useful for the open field. The next skill, this is the third skill on the list. If this commander is in a field troop, again, we are talking about field troops today, so this is exactly what we want to be looking at. Their troop is going to take 10% less normal damage. And whenever their troop uses an active skill, it mighty heals up to 3 nearby allied or friendly troops, including this commander's troop, for a large portion of their slightly wounded units. And the healing factor for this is 500. So this is quite an important skill. We are going to talk more about this later on. But first of all, I wanted to briefly mention that where it says their troops take 10% less normal damage. Now, this may seem like a rather small amount, but actually this is a huge buff due to the new commanders who are utilizing that normal damage. So the fact that she is actually taking a 10% reduction from normal damage that is being inflicted on Shajar, this means that any enemy who is using King Arthur or William Wallace and Liuchi, they are going to be dealing 10% less damage to Shajar. So this is very important, guys. It may seem like it's not the best buff, but actually it is becoming more relevant as the game progresses more towards the normal damage. Now, for the fourth skill here, this commander's troop takes 20% less damage while on the map. So that is going to make her a lot more tanky as well. And while this commander's troop is on the map, whenever it is reduced to 60% units remaining, it will be mighty healed for a large portion of its slightly wounded units, and the healing factor is 5,000. So again, we have seen a similar skill like this one with the release of Constantine. He has a very large healing factor, but this one is going to have some slight differences. And for the next 8 seconds, their troop loses 40% attack, and you will also take 40% less damage. This skill can trigger once per hour and the cooldown resets immediately if this commander enters your city. This is quite interesting because we know, as mentioned in her primary skill, if Shajar is working as the secondary commander, any healing that you get from Shajar is going to be converted to that true damage. So this is quite a lot of damage factor that is going to be taken into account from this fourth skill here. Now we are going to look at the expertise skill. This is the part that I wanted to talk about in particular that is going to be benefiting a lot of players in the game right now. So whenever this commander's troop heals a troop, for the next 3 seconds, the healed troop is going to gain 10% defense, and also it is going to deal 20% more normal damage. Now, if we look at this, the normal damage bonus is going to also include the basic attacks, the counter attacks, the spite damage, and the combo attack damage. So basically, the Shajar is pretty much getting a huge buff right now. If you thought this was already useful, this expertise skill here, well, now it just got even better, guys. With the release of King Arthur and also William Wallace and Liuchi, she's looking pretty good. Now, briefly going back to her third skill here, at the bottom of this skill, she is healing up to 3 nearby allied troops, meaning that 3 of your troops are going to be receiving this normal damage bonus of 20%. So maybe even if you have 2 infantry commanders, which a lot of people are using 2 marches with the smite damage, you are going to get that buff there with 20% normal damage, as well as your brand new combo attack synergy from the cavalry release. So this is looking really good, guys. You don't have to be an archer player to be getting the most out of your Shajar here. She is going to be working very well for those infantry and cavalry players as well. Now that we have talked about the Shajar skills in particular, we are going to talk about what is the best pairing for Shajar. Now, this is a very good question because we do already know that the archer marches right now in the game are already looking pretty good, and that is partly the reason why Shajar has struggled to find her relevance in the game. But now with the recent release of Phillip, everything has changed, and there is actually a very good synergy between these 2 commanders. Now, I'm going to explain exactly why. First of all, before we look at any of these skills, we're going to jump straight into the talent tree for Phillip. And this is why, the reason why we are looking at Phillip's talent tree, okay? You might have already guessed it. We are going to be using Phillip as the primary commander, and then Shajar is going to be the secondary commander. So with that in mind, that means that Shajar is going to be using that healing factor that was mentioned earlier in her active skill. Now, looking at this particular talent tree here for Phillip, there is a reason why this is so good, and in fact it is actually better than any other commander in the game right now, where you are going to be getting the absolute maximum buff for that healing factor that Shajar is utilizing. Now, as you can see here, Phillip does have the support tree, and we can see here there is a talent here called Elixir. This is going to be giving you a buff. Any healing this commander's troop receives is increased by 9%. So that is already fantastic. There is also a second healing related talent tree here. This is called counter attack. Whenever this commander's troop receives healing, it gains a 9% attack for 3 seconds. Now, again, going back to the active skill of Shajar, keeping in mind that the healing factor is going to be converted into true damage, and that true damage will also be calculated off how much attack you have. So the fact that this counter attack talent tree right here is going to be buffing your attack by a further 9%, meaning that you are going to be gaining the absolute maximum damage capacity from that true damage. Now, it gets even better here, guys, because as we know, Phillip is a leadership commander. Now, a lot of the other pairings that people have tried so far with Shajar are not leadership. So suddenly we have some extra talents that we can play around here with. And there is one particular that I wanted to look at, and that is none other than healing herbs. Now, this may look familiar with the elixir that we just looked at in the support tree, and that's because it is exactly the same. But now, instead of getting a 9% bonus just from the elixir alone, that is going to be taken up to an 18% total of a bonus to the healing. Now, we are going to take a quick look at some of Phillip's skills to see exactly why he works so well with Shajar. Now, again, we are going to be using Phillip as the primary commander. Now, with these skills, we have the first active skill here for the next 2 seconds, up to 5 nearby allied or friendly troops, including this commander's troop, are going to take a 10% damage reduction. And they are also going to be dealing 20% more damage. And the important part at the bottom of this skill here, it mentions that the effect of this skill is going to be multiplied by 2 for this particular commander troop. So that means that the Phillip and the Shajar are actually going to be dealing up to 40% additional damage. Now, moving on to the second skill here. While this commander's troop is on the map, there are a bunch of buffs here that are going to be affecting certain troop types, but we are, however, looking at the archer factor alone, as we are going to be pairing this with Shajar. So your troops are going to gain a 35% health bonus, keeping in mind that Shajar is already giving your archers a 35% health bonus, meaning that you are going to receive a total of 70%. Not to mention the 20% march speed bonus, so this is not going to be a slow march like we have seen with Trajan in the past. Now, the third skill, this is where it gets interesting again. If their troop contains only one unit type, you are going to deal a further 30% damage. Keeping in mind from the active skill, that was already going to be 40% damage. Added on top of the 30%, that means you have a 70% bonus damage just from Phillip's skills here. Now, the really cool thing about this fourth skill is he is going to be dealing an AoE damage of up to 800 damage factor, up to 3 enemy targets. This is also going to be reducing their rage by up to 100. So this is going to have some great synergy if you already have commanders like William Wallace and also King Arthur, who are reducing the enemy's rage by 100 as well. So this essentially means if you have all of these marchers that are swarming down a single target, that means that single target is going to be losing a lot of rage every single turn. So not only is Phillip doing a lot of buffing, he is also going to have the potential of doing an AoE damage that is going to work well with Shajar. And moving on to the expertise skill, whenever this commander uses their active skill, they have a 40% chance to use their active skill for a second time. And whenever the other commander in their troop uses their active skill, they have a 20% chance to use their active skill for a second time as well. And this skill can trigger once every 7 seconds. So this means that you are going to get that potentially up to 40% extra damage from the active skill that we just had a look at from Phillip. Now, also with that extra 20% chance to activate the Shajar, because she is acting as the secondary commander, that means that she is going to be getting that true damage, which is a lot of damage factor, by the way, guys, that will be potentially going for a second time. Now, I am a player who has invested in the smite damage commanders, such as William Wallace and Liushi. Now, you can see here, it does say smite damage is going to be affected by bonuses to normal damage instead of the skill damage. Now, as shown earlier in the video, from Shajar's expertise skill, this means that William Wallace and Liushi will be receiving a 20% bonus to the damage output. Now, we can also see something similar here with King Arthur, who is the brand new combo attack damage commander if you are using him as the primary commander. So we can see here that combo attack is going to be affected by the bonuses to normal damage. So this does have the potential to adjust some of the pairings that you may already be using in your lineup. Now, I know a lot of players are using King Arthur as the secondary commander, and that is okay. He is doing fantastic results with Hero QBing. However, if you are somebody who is looking to invest in that Delta formation, as well as using him as the primary commander, that means that a Phillip and Shajar is going to be boosting your marches even further. So with that in mind, guys, I think I will be working on my Phillip and Shajar sometime in the future. And I basically just wanted to provide some of these inputs today for you guys, so you can potentially think about what may work for you well in the field. Now, if you did enjoy today's video, guys, please make sure to join the Discord that is in the description down below, and also like and subscribe to my channel for more Rise of Kingdoms content coming up very soon.